Welcome to Advanced Neurospinal Solutions, Dr. Elmer's Brain Workshop. And today we're going to spend a little time looking at x-rays, pre and post. We're going to see the changes that can happen when we use what has been called the Pettibon system. Dr. Burl Pettibon invented it. It includes weighting systems where you put weights on the individuals, forcing them to adapt into the postures that we're trying to create. And so in that, you're also doing molding to change the shape of discs. You hear all the time from the medical community that once your disc gets small and they flatten out and bulge, you got to have surgery. And I'm not saying there's no time for surgery. I'm not saying that at all. But we can increase the height of the discs. We can increase the shape of the disc, and we'll go over a little bit of that in just a minute. So we're going to look at some actual patients here, and we're going to, this first, in fact, I'll turn out the lights here so you can see better. This first patient here in the upper quadrants here, this is before and after. This patient is supposed to have a curve in this direction. They have a reversal of that curve. I'm going to see what it should look like. It should look like that. Okay. And so it's reversed. This is 6 months later. And so we've restored that much of the curve to that point. And so we'll talk about in just a little bit about how we do that. But here we're going to look at this x-ray. We're looking at the individual. This is looking at them from the side. This is looking at this patient from the front. The looking at it from this dimension, the sacrum is tilted 8 degrees, which means they're like this. And in that, they have the low pelvis, low hip on the right side. And we want to shift it, but we want the patient to do it for us. And so we put them in a weight, actually 2 weights, one in the front and one in the back, kind of like if you had a low shoulder and we put a purse over your shoulder and you would lift against it naturally without even thinking about it. It's a reflex. We call it a reflexogenic response. We deal in the reflex system rather than trying to do exercises that we think with, because posture is brainstem, cerebellum, and extrapyramidal nervous system in the spinal cord, which is not the brain that you think with, it's the brain that thinks you. It gives you stability, it gives you posture, it gives you rigidity against gravity and function with gravity. And so here's this tilt, and it's creating a scoliosis here. And so what we're looking at the next day, we put a weight, a pound in the front and a pound in the back. And this is the next day with that pound on the right in the front, pound on the right in the back. And this has leveled the sacrum to 0. That's pretty nice. And it's caused them to upright themselves. Okay? And so those are changes that were affected. And you say, well, the weights, that effect doesn't last. And I say, you're absolutely right. As soon as they take it off, it's going to go back. But this proves that this therapy is going to help them grow that system, that reflexogenic system, from a neurological point of view, brainstem, cerebellum, extrapyramidal nervous system, from a muscular point of view, from a blood vessel point of view, from a changing the shape of the structure of the body, all of that. And this patient is doing those exercises twice a day for 20 minutes. And in 4 months, we reshot this x-ray, and she looked like this without the weights on, because she had changed over time. And so this is really interesting to me, because I can know whether it's going to help before I even start. This says, yes, this is going to work. And that's why I'm very confident in the work that I do, because I know before I start. And I've had many patients who've come in and they'd say, man, I wish I hadn't had that surgery. It didn't help. Now, there are surgeries that help, but too many surgeries happen that it's the wrong surgery or it's the right surgery, but should have happened years before. There's so many different factors. But they say, I never would have got it. And I always say, wouldn't it have been interesting if you could have debuted the surgery before you got the surgery? You wouldn't have gotten it. Well, we have debuted the surgery before the surgery. We know it's going to change it. It's going to affect and change the posture of the body, which is interesting to me because I'm not only a structural correction specialist, I'm also a functional neurologist. And the primary driver of the level of drive in your brain, we call it this centigrade, the central integrative state of the brain, is the muscles in your spine that give you rigidity against gravity. Their activity, their driving from a neurological point of view sends signals to the cerebellum, cross over into the brain, and cause that level of drive. And so the less this works the way it's supposed to, the more the brain doesn't work the way it's supposed to. So, but this is before, after, before, after. Now let's talk about up here. Here we're looking at the discs from the front. Here we're looking at them from the side. And if you notice, these vertebrae look like boxes. Those boxes, if you stack up a bunch of boxes on top of each other, you always get a column of boxes. But we don't want a column. We want a curve. And so in order to have a curve, we've got to have a wedge shape between the boxes that is bigger in the front than it is in the back. And we're seeing, which is interesting in this, we're seeing the opposite. It's bigger in the back than it is in the front. Okay, that's why we're getting the reverse curve. So the thing that dictates the curves in your neck, mid-back, lower back, are the shape of the discs. Not just how tall are they, but are they bigger in the front than they are in the back? And so we do molding to change the shape of these discs. We have a molding kit system that you can mold. My patients are doing molding twice a day for 20 minutes. And in that, they are changing the shape of these discs over time. That's kind of like orthodontics, yes. And I've been called the orthodontist of chiropractic. We're changing those discs, we're opening them up. And the way we're doing that, we'll turn this on and I'll draw it here. If we take a vertebra, we're gonna take this and we're gonna look at it like this, okay? Because we're gonna lay on molds. These molds are gonna be here when you're laying down. Okay, so if we take the L3 here, L3, and we're gonna take a roll. Now the roll is only gonna improve us for about 6 to 7 days. Okay, and we won't go into the mathematics and the geometry of that. But it's pushing up, pushing up, pushing up, pushing up, okay? Well, let's say I've got L4 and L2, and they're pushing up and pushing up, okay? So they're gonna try to open it up a little bit. Can you see that? Okay, all right. And so it's going to only last for about 6 to 7 days. But then after that, we're going to rely on molds that give us an advantage from a calculus analytic geometry point of view. They're going to look like this. Okay? And now, this is still going to give off forces 90 degrees to tangent. Boy, that may have been a while ago that you heard that phrase, right? Here's 90 degrees to tangent, 90 degrees to tangent. Okay? So what that's going to do, because this isn't a consistent circle, this is going to take the L2 and the L4 and spread them apart, traction them apart, opening up these discs into a wedge shape. Like that. That's how we're going to create it. And so we're doing the warm-ups. It's the warm-ups that make it work, and we'll do another video on that, on explaining how that works, how the warm-ups really makes it molding and that. But we open those discs up and create this curve, and you'll notice here that the front is bigger than the back. Well, that's profound, because this is L4, this is L5, right? Bigger in the front than is the back. Well, take a look here at the one we did before, L4, L5. It was bigger in the back than it is in the front, and the overall disc is bigger too, which is impossible. I hear it from everybody, that's impossible. But we just do the impossible here, okay? So, and this one right here, it's got a little bit of a wedge. This one is actually slightly, this one is bigger slightly, and this one is wedged also, and it's bigger in the front than it is in the back. And so the molding has created this change, not only making the disc bigger, but it's also made the wedge shape. Now, the patient is doing also decompression. The decompression is done here in our office, and it's not about just opening the discs. It's about accelerating the molding. Okay, that's how I say it. And so if you think about that, when you lay on the molds, they open up into a wedge a little bit, but they're limited by their boundaries. And so each time we do that, it takes a long time. But if we can take decompression and open it, the problem with decompression is it opens it evenly, which means it will get rid of that curve. And that's the problem I see with these teeter hang-ups and with the other, the decompression type tables, inversion boots, all these things. They are going to get rid of the curve that you have. It'll feel good while you're doing it, but then after a while, it'll only feel good when you're on it, because it got rid of the curve. And the curve gives you your mechanics, but also it takes the pressure off the spinal cord and brainstem. And that's one of the secrets that I use in order to get the radiculopathy, the pain down the leg into the toes, and that. By putting that curve, getting that curve to start being created, we can get rid of the pressure that's on those nerves that exit the spinal cord. Okay, so, but in decompression, we're going to open it indiscriminately, but it's for the molding. I want to get a bigger wedge like that. I don't want just to take it from a wedging in the back to a wedging in the front. I want a bigger wedge. You notice, bigger wedge, not just reversal of the wedge. Okay, so That's the molding and decompression working together in order to create that change. And it gives you the stability, but it also gets you ready to rewire the spinal cord to operate this mechanical system optimally. We're supposed to build our nervous system in a way that causes the reflexes to drive this optimally. That happens through crawling. But most kids don't crawl. They're in swings, Johnny jump ups, they're in walkers, they walk too soon, and then there are those who did crawl who've lost the posture and lost the mechanics. Therefore, they've changed how the spinal cord uses that machine. We want to bring the machine back to spec, the way it was designed by the designer, and then we want to wire it to spec to drive optimally. It's a machine, and that machine, what is a machine? A little in gets a lot out. If you put a quarter in a machine and nothing comes out, we call that government. If we put a quarter in a machine and a quarter comes out, that's not a very good machine. But if you put a quarter in and 5 quarters come out, that's a better machine. But this thing is designed to, you put a quarter in and 12 quarters come out. And that's one of the most common things I hear in changing spines and in bringing them back to the way they were designed is, I can't believe how much energy I have now. Why? Because it's taking less energy to oppose gravity and run the system, leaving all this extra energy for doing everything else, right? I had one lady, and she was just frazzled when I first got her, and I'm working with her, and it's coming close to Christmas, and I'm showing her x-rays, and we made some very big changes, and she said, well, it's very nice that I did, but what I'm excited about is I've got all this energy, and I've got family coming in from out of town, and they always come, and I always dread it. And I say, now I don't dread my family coming into town. I'm excited about it for the first time. This is like the best Christmas present I ever gave myself. And so that's some of the things that happen as a result. We've also seen some radical changes in athletes. I had 3 different golfers I was working with, and they were all 250 drivers. And by changing the structure of the spine and by teaching the spinal cord to run it the way it was designed, they all broke 300 yards in their driving. So that was pretty awesome. So, but in this, we are not relying on it feels better, right? Cold, hard math. Is it improving the structure? If it isn't, why? Because I'm the results guy. I'm not here, I don't want to treat you. I don't want to treat patients. I want to change their lives. I want to make it so that they are different, so that they can do the life that they were meant to do, the life that they couldn't do maybe even 10 years ago. I want them to be able to fulfill the measure of their creation. Oh, I think I've read that somewhere. Anyway, fill the measure of their creation. So, before, after. That's how we operate here. Also in the neurology side of things, we operate that way. Do we have any questions?
No.
Okay. All right, do you guys have any questions?
No, but I can say that I do this and I can see a giant change in my own self.
Beautiful. What are some of the changes you've noticed?
I feel much better. I'm not having leg spasms. I'm not having as many seizures. My pain is so much better. I don't have radiating pain down my arms or my legs. My neuropathy is better. My energy is better. My brain fog is gone. Yeah, lots of good things.
That's a bunch of good things. So. Thank you for coming. And is that it?
Yep.
All right, thank you so much for coming. Next week, we're going to talk about autoimmune. We're going to go inside and outside of autoimmune. We've had a lot of experience with it because by the time the patients get here, they're 80% of them have autoimmune. But now we're seeing a lot of research relating to different kinds of medicines that we take regularly that are causing autoimmune.
Scary.
So yeah. Have a great